Okay, guys, so as we said just now, we were going to do the brake fluid flush, which we've just done with the RBF660. And for those of you who want to do something similar, just to let you know, the RBF660 is actually a very dark fluid. And so the normal, idea of putting fresh fluid in and pumping through all the nasty, darker-looking stuff until the clean, clear-looking stuff comes through doesn't really work with us. So what we ended up doing is just having a little bit of this in a bottle. And then as we pumped the dirty fluid through, we continuously emptied that, and then we could compare colors until we were satisfied that we were getting the RBF 660 through there. But really, the stuff that we had in there before was standard fluid, but relatively fresh, and so that was coming through almost completely clear. So, doing brake fluid is always a bit of a pain in the bum, but it's got through okay, and we're quite happy we now got a nice clean system. By the way, if you are tempted to go the so-called easy route and get one of these automatic bleeders or vacuum bleeders, don't bother. You will break your hand pumping and squeezing and holding on. You literally pump about 1 or 2 milliliters per pump. It's just not worth the hassle. So really what you do need is somebody with a set of thighs in the car and do it the good old-fashioned way. Obviously it does help having the car in a lift, so we're quite lucky in that regard. But yeah, the old-fashioned way of pumping with somebody at the bleed nipples is definitely the way to go. Okay, so just want to show you now from the underside of the car some of the other goodies that we've been up to. And we're going to get around to adjusting the coilovers just now. But maybe if we can get in underneath here, Nick, and have a little look up here. So this is our set of M3 branches. And as you can see, quite an intricate piece of workmanship, and they're squeezed in there. And if you come down and under this side, you will see just how tight it really is. This is incredibly tight, and right up here where I'm shining the light, you'll see the header actually comes into contact with the block, and they've actually had to grind away a little bit of the block cooling fin there. And it's still touching actually, so I'm going to try and get a little bit more of that away. Incidentally, those of you who are familiar with the underside of these cars will notice that there's a brace missing over here. So there's basically a triangulated brace that sits underneath. We've taken that off for now because that was also fouling on the header. So I just want to heat that up, deform it to get it to a point where it just clears the header over here, and then we'll be good to go and not have anything touching. The issue with the touching is probably not a massive train smash, but obviously as the engine is rotating under load, we do then get potential that the branches actually gall up on something. We don't want that to happen. And we were hearing a little ticking sound, almost like basically a thermal expansion, and we're trying to get rid of that. It has largely gone, but we do need to get rid of that completely. Okay, so onto the coilovers. And maybe let's start at the front. We can see we've got our BC Racing coilies in, and they really are pretty. It's a nice setting. Or nice setup, I should say. They did come with these links, so they're shorter than the standard sway bar links. If we'd retained the standard sway bar links, we would have had a problem because we would have fouled basically here on the lower control arm. So in terms of setup, we're relatively happy with where these are sitting right now. So obviously the preload on the springs is set. If you recall correctly, we went for 10 kilo per millimeter setting on the front coil. And so from an adjustment point of view, you'll recall that we ordered the inverted coilover. So in this case, adjustment actually happens from down below. Less convenient, certainly, but the inverted shock does mean that the mass and the oil in this damper is actually moved up and away from the stuff that gets hot down here. And so that does translate into lower unsprung mass. And probably certainly a better performance of the shock as it starts to work really hard. So we decided that was worth our while. All right, then moving across to the back. Here we have our rears. Now you'll recall as well that we were a bit grumpy that we were sent the wrong rear coilovers. And we were sent the system which is actually not a true coilover. So it was a spring. A shock, and then just a replacement spring, which sits here in the standard spring pocket. And I'm not sure if you can see that from this angle, but the standard spring pretty much sits over here, and so that was what we were initially sent. So that was incorrect, and we've now been sent the correct thing, which is a true coilover, so the spring around the shock in one piece. So this is the bit that we're going to be adjusting just now. We've definitely got too much ride height. We're going to be looking to drop about 35 mil to bring it in line, or 30 mil. We'll bring it in line with the front. It'll be fractionally higher than the front at that level. And quite nice as well is that the top mount, which is a pillow ball mount, is an offset mount. So it immediately gives you a couple of degrees or maybe a degree of additional camber. And that means that you've got a little bit more to play with when it comes to adjusting the rear end. So yeah, all in all, really happy with the BC racing stuff, and looking forward to tinkering with that and getting it set up really optimally.